Hello, everyone. Let me see if I can get, oh, there are the comments. Um, Hope you've had a good week. I feel like it's the longest week ever. I was sure all day yesterday that it was Wednesday, and so when I woke up today and found out it was not Thursday, it was a little heartbreaking. So I hope you're having a better week than I am. Um, so I've been talking to several people recently about whether or not clinical consultation is a luxury. When you work for a group practice or in community mental health, then most likely you have clinical consultation, either if you are you're pre-licensed through a supervisor or through colleagues there at your practice or your agency. And that can be really convenient having colleagues right there. Sometimes those colleagues are not a good fit, or that supervisor is not someone that is a good fit for you, and that can certainly make it difficult. But when you move into the sector of private practice, especially for those who are online or solo practitioners, this becomes a little bit more tricky. Sometimes people go into solo practice and they have a network of therapists that they know locally that they will be able to continue to do consultation groups with, to process cases and get support. But that's not always the case, depending on your circumstances, if you've moved from a different area, if maybe you're looking for a new network of people, it might be that that's not an option for you to gather a bunch of peers and have a consultation group. When I went into solo practice, I specifically wanted to look for a paid consultation group. And there were several reasons why. One of them was I wanted to be in a group that was facilitated by somebody. I wanted it to be a small group where I knew the same people were going to show up each time. I wanted the consistency, and it felt like the right fit for me. Budgeting for that felt a little scary though. So I initially enrolled for a 6-month consultation group, and it was an excellent group, and I got a lot out of it. Um, but every time I had to pay the monthly fee, that little thought in my head would think, do I really need this? Like, should I be spending this money on other things? And I found myself questioning if I was investing in the right things. And so pretty much every month, and then I continued to renew for several more sessions. My husband and I would invariably end up having a conversation about this. And what I came to realize that was his point, and ultimately what I knew for myself, was that I am my product. The therapist is the product. Investing in me is the very best thing that I can invest in. That's why we invest in trainings and certification programs and conferences and retreats and things like that, so we can level up our clinical skills, learn from colleagues, get the collegial support that we all need. And I had to stop looking at it as a luxury, because honestly, when I went to the group, I left there feeling so refreshed and renewed that it felt like a luxury. I didn't have a client at that point, which is a luxury in itself sometimes, to have a little break during your day. But then talking to colleagues who understood me, who were kind and supportive and honest, that was really helpful to me. And so I kind of got confused in my mind, I think, that I was looking at this as a luxury. And once I was able to shift my mindset and start looking at this as an important investment in my business, then it made a whole lot more sense to me. So I really encourage therapists. I have this conversation with people on a regular basis. Do they want paid? Do they want free? What are the pros and cons of each of those? And I'm going to be talking about that some more in another video. But right now I want to get past this thought that we have that it's not something we really need. The more I've been involved in my own clinical consultation groups, as well as the groups that I facilitate, the more I've realized that this is such a necessary part of our work. And it's something that we should be seeking out. I feel like our professional bodies are not encouraging enough for this. I honestly think that we should get CEs for at least a certain number of clinical consultations that we are doing during our CE renewal period, to encourage therapists to be doing that. Because once we get through our supervision, we're supposed to know what we're doing, we're supposed to be able to jump in and handle all the cases. But we know that there are times that we have a little area with a case where we do need some input from somebody else. We do worry, maybe I have a blind spot on this case, Maybe there's some countertransference here. I would benefit, and more importantly, my client would benefit from me consulting with some colleagues. So once we start looking at this as a necessary thing, I think it becomes easier to plan it in your schedule or in your budget. So the very first thing you should be doing is having it in a set day and time in your schedule. In my opinion, twice a month is ideal. Meeting with the same group of people, the same day, the same time, twice a month. To me, that's the very ideal way of getting the most effective clinical consultation and peer support. If you are paying for a program, putting it in the budget and accepting this is an expense, this is a business expense, this is an investment in my business and myself, then it becomes a little bit easier to not question that expense all of the time. So this can be a very complex issue. Interestingly enough, as it is, I have a friend in the UK, and I've gotten to know more therapists in the UK. And while they don't have licensure in the way we do, they have levels that you can achieve. They are required forever and ever to have paid supervision. So no matter what level you're at, even if you're at the highest level, you still are required to have paid supervision. And I really love that model because I think it's easy to get complacent, to feel like we know what we're doing and we don't want to waste the time, or that we're losing money by canceling that client space so that we can have that support. And I would really like to challenge people around that idea. I'd like to challenge people around the thinking that we should get to a place where we don't need that anymore. There are certain nuances of the work that we do that I feel like we should challenge ourselves regularly to make sure we know what we're doing. Working with suicidal clients is one of those areas. I personally don't feel like anyone should ever get to the point where they feel completely proficient with that. We should have that little bit of an edge. We should have that little bit of a worry that we want to make sure that we're doing all the things. There is so much at stake. There is so much variety in people and what their needs are, and our training and our experience, that I feel like you should constantly be questioning yourself. Am I doing all the things? Am I covering all the bases? Have I done everything I can? Touching base with colleagues. This is what I've done. What do you think? Do you have any other thoughts? And so I just want to make sure that we aren't getting complacent in our skills. And, I've been in this field a very long time. I put in a message earlier, someone was talking about the types of training people have had in the past. I was in school in the early 90s. And so we were taught things like be a blank slate, set rigid boundaries, don't ever talk about yourself. There were very specific rules that we were taught that didn't work for most of us. And fortunately, I was able to be in an environment where I was encouraged to not fully embrace those things, but look for alternatives and ways to meet the client where they're at so that we could both show up and do the work in an authentic way and in a loving, supportive, helpful way. So if you're somebody who's been having those thoughts, you want the consultation, you don't have a group of colleagues that you know that you can get together with, you've considered paying for a peer consultation group, I'd like for you to give that some thought and consider whether or not you are hurting yourself and your business and maybe not giving your clients the very best experience, the very best therapy, if you're not getting that support that I believe we all need to get on a regular basis. I would really love it if you've listened to this and you have an opposing perspective. I always love to hear that. So if you want to drop it in the comments, I would love to get a dialogue going. If you have other questions about clinical consultation, please feel free to drop those as well. And I look forward to reading your comments and interacting and engaging with you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.